I have a question that I want to deal with here before we dismiss the children and Mary speaks and so forth. Guys, I'm going to need two scriptures, 1 John 4 and 2 Thessalonians 2, if you can find that for me. This is the question that came in. What is happening in the nation, America? What is happening in the nation this summer? Because we're having all the violence and police shootings and people being shot. And I just heard on the radio yesterday, day before, it was either yesterday or the day before, they said in the last 24 hours in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, 7 people had been shot. In a 24-hour period. And that people are, North Minneapolis specifically, are really nervous. You know, that's a lot of shootings. I mean, what in the world is going on? This is unusual. What's happening? What is happening? This is what is happening from my perspective. I'll throw in my 2 cents to answer the question. This is what is happening from my perspective. Back out. Don't look at the details. Back out and see the big picture of what is happening in the world. 1 John 4, I'll read verse 3. But every spirit that does not acknowledge Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of Antichrist, or anti-anointing, anti-the Messiah, which you have heard is coming. And now this is the part I want you to really see, so we don't get shooting into the future. And even now is already in the world. The spirit of Antichrist, back in John's day, was already operating in the world and functioning. How much more in our day if we actually believe we are in the end times? Now, the next one is 2 Thessalonians 2. This is Paul, and he's talking about the same thing. I'm going to jump in at verse 7. He's just labeling it different. For the secret power of lawlessness is already at work, but the one who holds it back will continue to do so until he is taken out of the way. Then the lawless one, see, you've got the spirit of Antichrist, and you've got the man coming in the future who is going to be called anti-Jesus, anti the anointing, the Antichrist man. Spirit, man. You have the power of lawlessness, and then you've got the lawless one. Same thing. Just two different descriptions of the same person, the same thing. The secret power of lawlessness is the spirit of Antichrist. He said it's already working, saying the same thing John's saying. Verse 8, then the lawless one, that will be the Antichrist, will be revealed, whom the Lord will overthrow with the breath of his coming and splendor of his coming, the breath of his mouth, etc. The coming of the lawless one will be in accordance with the work of Satan. So we know what side the Antichrist is dealing with. That's the satanic side. So you say, so what's happening? The spirit of Antichrist is slowly over time gaining momentum in this earth to set up for the man to come in and take power. The way that spirit operates is lawlessness, because the man will be lawless. So what is happening in America this summer? We are watching a huge push, advancement, a huge explosion of the power of lawlessness advancing. That's what we're watching. This is the core of this whole thing. Everything that's happening with the violence and the police officers and people being shot and all this stuff, this is Antichrist spirit at work around us. Don't be lulled to sleep. This is what's happening. This is the core of it. This is the bottom line of it. So I'll answer a couple of the other questions that were tied to, okay, what's happening? What about the bad cops? Well, like anything else, no matter what you get into, whether it be business or the corporate world or ministry or whatever, you're always going to have a few people who are off. There's always going to be a few. But the greatest majority of our law enforcement people in this world are right on the money, and their heart is in it to do their job for the protection of the people. I mean, that's where it's at. So then that went to the next question of, well, what about all the innocent victims? And that was referring to not the drive-by shootings, that was referring to the bad cops. What about all these people who are being shot by these bad cops? Well, again, like anything else, you're going to have a few who are in it for the wrong motives and whatever, and, stuff happens. But let me give you a thought, something to think about. In every case that I specifically have been watching for this because I'm trying to watch for Antichrist spirit or lawless spirit. In every case that I have seen on TV or otherwise, if they give any details around it whatsoever, like, for instance, the last one that just took place in Minneapolis where the guy was supposedly innocent and he was reaching for his driver's license or his wallet or whatever, okay? And then he got shot. In every case, the person who got shot was not doing what the law officer told them to do. In every case. If we are told by an officer of the law to put our hands up and stand still, if you will do that, chances are really, really good you won't be shot. I don't know of any cases that they've shown where people have gotten shot by law enforcement officers where they were just driving down the street and they pulled over and randomly saw someone standing on the steps, didn't like him, and shot him. But it's almost portrayed like that. It's like, well, see, it's a color thing and this, that, and that. No, it's not. In every case, the person was being told to do something, they refused to do it, and in one way or another either felt threatened or was threatened. The life of the officer felt threatened or he was threatened, and boom, guns went off. That is easily preventable. I was taught when a law officer tells you to do something, you do it. And if there's problems with it, we'll deal with it later. We can go to court. You say, who taught you that? My parents. And if they'd have ever caught me lipping off to a law officer, it would have been better to be thrown in jail than go home. It would have been easier. See, we've lost that. We've lost that in this country, and this country has become lawless. And we're protecting the lawlessness, the lawless decisions that people are making, and behind the scenes, and you can be a conspiracy theorist or whatever, but behind the scenes, something's going on to try to stir up trouble because these people are being presented as martyrs. So what's going on in this country? Well, pan out. The big thing is the spirit of Antichrist is gaining momentum. This is a spirit of lawlessness. And I wish I had good news for you, but it's going to increase the closer we get to Jesus coming. Because that is the atmosphere, that is the spirit or the anointing, if you want to use it, that word, that is going to usher in the reign of the Antichrist and those 7 years. He is the man of lawlessness. So for this stuff to escalate, well, it makes sense. Our culture is turning lawless. So what do you expect? Is what it is. So hopefully that answered that question.